Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you all once again to Creditsafe webinars. We're excited to have you with us in joining us each and every week as we bring you information. We give you education, we give you value, hopefully, with stuff going on in the B2B industry space, whether it relates to specifically to our Creditsafe products or things or not. We want to make sure that you guys are informed and know what's going on, especially during these times with this pandemic and everything that's going on and constantly changing in the business community at large. So I'm excited today to be able to have a very timely and very informative webinar going on. But as we go into this, just want to remind all of you, for those who've been with us before or those that haven't, you have the option to ask questions. This is going to be a question and answer type discussion today with our speaker. And so I want you to have the opportunity to ask questions at any time. The way you do that is at the bottom of your screen, the video screen that you're seeing, there's a little text bubble with Q&A. Go ahead, put any questions that you have in there, and I'll be happy to ask our guest, our speaker, the questions as we go through there and as things are going on. I may not be able to ask them as soon as you get to them or as soon as you have them, but I will ask them quickly. I'm not going to hold these all to the end today, as we've done at other times. So with that being said, my name is Nathan Kolb, and I'll be your host as I am most weeks. And I wanted to bring Mark Edwards in and introduce Mark. Mark is the managing director of Creditsafe USA and has been with Creditsafe for over 16 years, holding a variety of different roles in sales, data, and management. Mark is a global credit professional, is a registered global credit professional, with a history in business information. He has years of experience in portfolio management, credit and risk solutions. Sorry, that's a tongue twister for me. And business development. And in his free time, Mark is an avid rugby and boxing fan and enjoys cooking. So he's got a diverse level of interests. I'm not quite sure with as much as he does and has accomplished that he has much free time, but he does have some to enjoy those things. And just want to welcome you to the webinar today, Mark.
Thank you, Nathan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Great to have you. So, you know, like in the past, and we've got different things going on, we want to make sure that, you know, folks know what's happening out there and that we're, you know, we're being sensitive to what's going on. So one of the biggest things that Creditsafe has done was launching the COVID Impact Score, the COVID-19 Impact Score that a lot of folks have talked about, and we've done webinars on in the past. But now there's this new thing, and it's called the COVID-19 Credit Management Strategy. What is it, and why did this happen? Why was it developed?
Your audio was breaking up a little then, Nathan, but I think I understood the question. So Creditsafe serves over 110,000 customers globally, so North America, Europe, and Asia. All of our research consistently points to one thing. 80% of bad debt always comes from long-term accounts that people have had for over 12 months. And just by definition, the new accounts typically tend to be lower value and represent a smaller percentage of a company's income or revenue. So we identified that your existing customer base is where the highest risk. Taking a step back, in March 9th, I was actually in Ohio with one of our sales reps as the COVID situation was developing, and for a series of 1 or 2 days, it was we were wondering if we're going to be able to have to drive from Ohio or fly back. Come the 23rd of March, Creditsafe Group had completely transitioned to a working from home environment. We had the added benefit of our European counterparts obviously being probably 2 weeks ahead. So the transition for us to get our own house in order was very, very quick. And by April the 9th, we released the COVID Impact Score. So the COVID Impact Score looked at the likely impact to a company and the industry on the industry and company level over the next 90 days. And This was quickly taken up by lots of companies. It was made available complimentary to all US businesses. But it became evident that it didn't quite go far enough. And we had lots of customers and different people asking, you know, how can we actually make use of this data? How can we make it help us? So we've basically taken it one step further and produced a series of tools to allow people to visualize the risk within their portfolio, but also to strategize their collections and credit processes. So we've created, like I say, a series of tools. The first tool is this page, the credit management strategy page, which details a particular portfolio. For the benefit of this webinar, we've looked at the entire US, or the Creditsafe database for active companies, and we'll see there's 26 million records in here, but we'll do that for every customer and non-customer's portfolio. We'll talk about the data matrix during the presentation. We provide the data health check, which I believe our colleague Ryan Greenberg has done a webinar on previously and is available online. Yes. But also the data append. So essentially we'll take your portfolio, and I'm going to switch my screen, Nathan, if you can tell me you see the Excel document.
I can.
We'll take the customer portfolio in its raw file and then append various pieces of information that allow a user or a customer to segment their database in different ways and you know, prioritize their strategy and collections. The last thing we'll do then is we've devised a data matrix, and that separates the portfolio into 4 distinct segments according to their risk. We'll import those into the 4 portfolios and monitor accordingly according to our advice.
Okay. Okay. So you're talking about, you said something about the data matrix. Can you explain that a little bit more as we're going through this so that everybody can get a good feel for it? Yeah,
no problem. So the data matrix is a segmentation tool that allows a customer to plot the risk of each of their customers using 2 factors. So we'll use the credit risk score. The credit risk score runs from A to E, A being very low risk, E being very high risk. We can then plot that against the COVID impact score. E being severely impacted and A being moderately impacted. So if we look at the entire database, we made this intuitive by red is the bad section, green is the good section, followed the second highest level of category of risk is the amber, followed by the yellow. So to give you some examples of where or why a company would fall in each of these segments, if we look at the highest risk bandings, let's take a local bar or restaurant who typically don't necessarily have pre-COVID would have had a strong credit report, coupled by the fact that they've essentially been closed now for 6 to 8 weeks. That would put companies like that in that bracket. Companies that would fall in the sort of 3rd category of risk. Let's use United Airlines as an example. So pre-COVID, they would have had a very strong credit risk score, so probably in an A. But however, we know they're severely impacted, so they would fall in this quadrant. The amber quadrant, if we think of maybe a small local grocery company who's who's actually probably doing quite well from the pandemic in terms of there's no reduced foot traffic or not significantly reduced, but didn't necessarily have a very good score. And then the companies or typical companies that would fall in to the green section or the very low risk section, if you like. You know, imagine a company that's producing, or a rubber company that's producing materials for PPP equipment, gloves and whatnot. They might fall into this section. So each of these quadrants represents a different level of risk.
Gotcha. So those companies that were already at an increased risk before this pandemic are always going to be at some higher level of risk than, say, a company that wasn't, but has seen some effect, of course, because of the pandemic.
Yeah, it's probably worth just elaborating on the risk score. So The Creditsafe credit score predicts the likelihood at a company level that that target company will go bankrupt or become severely delinquent in the next 12 months. We'll look at factors such as payment behavior, other negative legal events on that specific company. The COVID Impact Score is produced using a series of macro and microeconomic factors. We'll use local government and state data, as well as a lot of research on specific industries. So this looks at both industry and company level and the outlook for the next 90 days.
Okay, okay. So, I mean, there's great information here. There's great bits of data here, but how do you expect that companies are actually going to use this?
So what we've done, our guiding principle throughout this entire process is how do we provide guidance? You know, what can we do with this information? So first of all, when we're looking at the entire credit database, these numbers here represent the counts that fall in each of these plots. So there's 50,000 that fall into the severe, very low risk, very high risk category versus 254 that are essentially the lowest risk. So those numbers.
So you're talking about counts of companies there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
What we've done then, or what we tried to do is obviously give you a visualization of where your risk lies. For the US, we estimate about 30% of companies fall in the high risk section. But then we've categorized these risks and provide 4 key steps for each of these quadrants. So if we start with the highest risk, we call this immediate attention. We would recommend the collection of any overdue balance and reevaluate credit terms for any future sales. We also recommend that a company would perform frequent and review frequent checks and perform credit limit reviews. We recommend that someone would establish effective communication with a debtor and to confirm any key data items such as the billing and shipping addresses, but also the point of contact for accounts payable, etc. And we also recommend that any company in here, we monitor all changes within that business credit report. For the next category of risk, we've referred to this as mitigate and monitor. So we recommend that this is the second tier prioritization, as these are higher risk companies. We would recommend monitoring these segment of companies for both credit risk changes and payment behavior changes, and obviously reevaluate terms as necessary. Let's say a company is asking for a larger credit limit than we previously give them, which is worth careful consideration. And then obviously run credit checks and credit limit reviews for any high dollar accounts that fall into the section. The third tier of risk, we've referred to this as support and nurture. We recommend that companies maintain as normal terms and conditions with this group of customers as possible. From a collections prioritization standpoint, it's worth segmenting this, this group of companies by industry and company size. We also recommended any changes, monitoring any changes in the payment behavior of this organizations, but mostly let's focus on build strong relationships with an eye to the future. These could be high growth accounts when things normalize. And the last lowest group of companies we've referred to as maintain and grow, and these are opportunities for short-term growth. So look for these opportunities. Again, continue as normal terms and conditions as possible. Always maintain best credit control practice, but also monitor these companies for growth clues. So improvements in the credit score, improvement in payment behavior. They fall in an industry that, there are opportunities short term.
Sure. Okay. So I mean, it sounds like this is a pretty dynamic setup. This is a pretty dynamic scoring system and a decision matrix. So can you give me some examples of companies, how it's changed as it's gone along, how things are updated and all of that?
Yeah, so one of the challenges that we see credit managers are facing is information's changing on a day-to-day basis. Both at the local and federal level, information is changing, there's confusion. States differ. We even see instances where business classification or industry classification, either i.e. essential versus non-essential, is differing within a state. So it's very, very challenging. So we have a group of analysts whose full-time role is to monitor and support this initiative. One of the interesting things we've seen is one of the main drivers of how we categorize is the industry risk. So if we use SIC 79, which is the leisure industry, for example, the two-digit SIC is a classification system that basically gives every company an industry code, so we can identify obviously what industries they're in. The longer so it ranges from 2 digits to 7 digits, and the more granular it donates, the higher number of figures. But it's a 2-digit level, it's the sector. So you look at leisure, it would be easy to say, okay, well, leisure's being hit hard. Most companies may fall into the severely impacted section. If we look then at the 4-digit SIC, we've got 7991, which is public gyms. And it's evident, we see Gold's Gym that filed for bankruptcy in the last 2 weeks, that companies in that industry code are going to be severely impacted. On the flip side to that, SIC code 7992, which is public golf courses. I know in Pennsylvania over the last week, they recently allowed golf courses to open, and we've seen the same in some states across the nation. In turn, if we look at an industry that's supported by the public, by the golf clubs, is an industry 3949, sport and manufacture sporting goods. We've seen an uptick in online buying activity for golf equipment. So people are obviously desperate to get back on the course, and this is having a knock-on impact to this industry. So that's just one of the ways that we're monitoring these industries, and then the knock-on impacts these industries are having on others.
Right. So not just the industry, but each, the companies, and then that domino effect that kind of goes down and through. That makes sense. Yeah. And I'm guessing that those sporting good manufacturers, like you said, the gyms are closed. So there's probably a bunch of people buying weights or some sort of other equipment as well. So it makes sense that, getting down to those levels, that's a great thing. So, with all this going on and all this, how do businesses take advantage of this, Mark? I mean, it's a simple question, but it's important.
Yeah, we try to make it as easy as possible. So if you're a current Creditsafe customer, if you reach out to your account manager, they will talk you through the process. If you're not an existing Creditsafe customer, again, it's worth reiterating that these tools are provided completely complimentary, so there's no charge for this. Okay. But if you go to creditsafe.com, we can guide you very easily to the COVID-19 section, or there's a telephone number and you can reach us directly. But essentially what we would need to do is to receive an Excel file from you detailing your customer base. You can send this in completely securely by SFTP. The data that contains the company name, address, city, state, zip. We take that data, match it to our database, typically depending on the size of the portfolio, it takes less than 24 hours. We'll produce then the web page that we've been viewing specific to your customer base. So you can see how many companies you have that fall in each of these sections. We also then append that information to the file. So very simply, you're able to see how many companies you've got into each of these sections and who they are. So this is the account specific information. We also provide any other information, such as the credit score, the number of employees, the SIC codes, and revenue of that organization. Okay.
So ease of use, and folks, if you've missed where exactly Mark said to follow that, don't worry. In the email follow-up that just says thank you for coming to this, we're going to have those links in the recording of this, so you can go back and listen to that. But it is just on our website. If you go to the main page, you'll see all this information right there. But also, Mark, do you suggest that they do this once? Do you believe that they should keep doing it? I mean, it seems like it's dynamic. Should this be done hourly? What do you think?
Thank you for the reminder, Nathan. I missed out a key part of my discussion. We recommended this. What we're saying here is We're going to do this at point in time. So we'll run this exercise now. We'll then repeat this in 30 days, 60 days, and then 90 days. From that, then you can determine the trends, see how different industries are changing, and really understand the credit risk of your portfolio.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, I got to ask, I know we're going to have some other questions coming in here and everything, but I got to ask, I got to kind of to point out the gorilla in the room or the elephant in the room. There's a lot of companies doing this. There's a lot of companies putting stuff out about the COVID and how it impacts business. There's a lot of news reports and all that type of stuff. There's just a lot of noise out there. Is this any different? Is there anything special or unique about this that makes it of any different value to companies? Or is this just one more tool out there that can do the same thing?
Without doubt, I think this adds value. And as I mentioned, our guiding principle throughout of this is how do we provide guidance? And we genuinely believe this series of tools that we've developed and will continue to develop is assisting companies do that. There can be no argument that the relationship between buyer and seller is best understood by those parties involved in that relationship. But when you enhance that with the millions of data items collected by Creditsafe and the analytics performed, it just takes that understanding to the next level so you can visualize and take action from a credit perspective.
Gotcha. So these are, guiding principles, good way to get it in there, but you're suggesting, it sounds like over and over that those relationship building, this is a great time for that relationship building and really focusing on that. Is that my understanding?
I think one of the key messages that we're trying to develop is we don't want the knee-jerk reaction of companies just pulling credit limits just because there's too much risk. We don't think that's going to be helpful for the economy. We don't think that's going to be helpful to companies remaining solvent. But with proper credit management and better tools and supporting companies through this, we think the economy will benefit ultimately. Gotcha.
So there's some questions that have come in, and I want to make sure that I get to them. If I say them incorrectly, I apologize, folks. If you can, if you restate them, if I'm doing it incorrectly or you don't get your answer, please let me know. I've been trying to catch them as they've been coming in. This one I'm just going to read directly. If we check on a new customer credit worthiness or are examining existing customer credit score, is there a field in the portal itself to show this impact score, or is it something separate, as what I believe they're asking here?
Yeah, as of today, the COVID impact analysis is not within the Creditsafe portal. This is something that we are looking at and will be providing an update on very shortly. But today it's not available. It's only available in the Excel documents.
Okay. So they'll see it on that dynamic web page as things adjust, and then they'll see the specifics because we want to obviously respect privacy and everything in those Excel documents.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, some folks, that was one of the questions. And I think we've hit all the other questions here, Mark. I'm going to hang on here just another second or two to see if there's a couple more. We do have a couple more in here. How do we get access to this info? I know you answered that, but if you want to give that again, how they get access, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a customer, reach out to your account managers the most efficient way. If you go to our website, there's various forms within the COVID section, or just give us a call directly. Our number's listed on our website, and we'll have your account manager reach out to you. If you're not a customer, again, go to the Creditsafe website, go to the COVID-19 section. It's very intuitive. Fill in your details, and we'll have one of our support guys, reach out to you and get you set up very, very quickly.
Right. So yeah, it's available to all U.S. companies, is what you're saying there.
Yes.
Yep. And we will make sure, like I said, you will be getting a follow-up email just thanking you for being a part of this webinar, and there'll be a link there to get all this information. So you'll get this multiple times, folks. Next question is, does this cover both publicly traded and private companies?
Yes. So this covers all companies in the U.S.
Okay. What impact do you think collection agencies will have in protecting your past due accounts during this pandemic?
The collection I'm not quite sure I understand the question, but Creditsafe works with a lot of collection agencies, and it doesn't necessarily, there's no negative connotation. So I think, there's going to be, we're predicting up to 30% of companies might go bankrupt as a result of this. There's going to be a lot of bad debt, and utilizing collection companies to collect in a professional manner is advised.
Okay. This question, I'm going to read it specifically, and if we don't get a 100% answer, I'll just go ahead and try and rephrase for me. But do you model the pandemic as well, or just use assumptions or scenarios is the question. So I think it's, are we modeling specific to the pandemic, or are we just using, historical data only? What I believe is going on there.
Credit score is using historic data and historic events. The COVID-19 Impact Score is a policy rules system that looks short term. So we're taking into consideration how various various industry codes are affected, how various locations are affected, and combining all that data to create an output.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's kind of, we kind of do both depending on the scores.
Yeah. At data specific to the pandemic rather than what happened 12 months ago.
Right. Okay. Is the COVID-19 impact score just for the US or for other countries as well?
I believe each of our Creditsafe companies are developing their own scores. As of right now, it's only available for the US. I know there's one or two other Creditsafe countries, but again, if there's a specific country you have in mind, reach out to your account manager or directly to us, and we can take a look at that for you.
Right. So our scoring system is for US only, but they're working on adopting it for international and everything like that. Gotcha. Okay. There were several questions with that, so I wanted to make sure that we cover that one well. Have any of the fundamentals of credit scoring been affected by COVID-19, or has it just been additions or adjustments to the current credit scoring criteria?
So we've made no change to the fundamental algorithm that produces our credit score. Now, a company might look different now than it did pre-COVID, but that's because of the data elements that are available now. But the fundamental algorithm hasn't changed from what it was pre-COVID.
Gotcha. Is there a limit of, so you explained that this isn't right on the specific platform, but it is available through your account managers or what have you. Is there a limit of number of inquiries you can make that they can make for this? So if they want to segment it into multiple portfolios or put it into a bunch of times or do it more often than the 30, 60, 90, is there a limit there?
I don't think so. We're really looking to provide value here. Again, it's just a common sense approach, I feel.
Right. We've got a couple of.
We've done hourly. It might prove difficult because we obviously need to support other companies,
Sure.
Which is why we're recommending the 30, 60, and 90 days. But if there are multiple portfolios, perhaps you have your AR set up by region, we'd be happy to run multiple files.
Gotcha. Okay. And then a couple of questions just on how are we kind of modeling the score for the pandemic. So could you explain that maybe a little bit more of what type of information are we taking in, what data points are we using to kind of create that model and the impact score?
So we have two scores. The credit score, which we've discussed, is we haven't made any changes to the various weightings of data elements in that score as a result of COVID. That is the reason that we created the COVID impact score. We didn't feel it was appropriate to be changing. That said, if a company's fundamentals change and their credit position worsen today, that will be reflected in the report, but the algorithm remains the same. We understood that not changing our credit score is going to cause some not complications, but challenges, which is why we developed the COVID score, which looks at the situation in a more general way.
And what I think what they're asking is, what are those data points that we're looking at in those COVID scores? Like what are some of the data points, or how are we developing that model?
So we'll look at the industry as a whole. So we'll perform various research on how well an industry is paying, the credit scores of companies in that industry. We'll then look, we'll scour the media and perform research on various media outlets. We'll use local government and state information. So locations that are more severely closed down than others, businesses in those territories will be more impacted. Okay.
Gotcha. So real time, all the research we can get on those different points, we're just putting that in real time as quickly as we can get it. Gotcha. Yes. So if a customer of ours, of Creditsafe's, had to place a % loss that companies should provide for in anticipation of bad debts, is there a recommendation that you would have for that?
So we're working on projected losses for each of these sections, and it's too early for me to comment on. I think that's probably the next step of this development, is to look at projected losses in each of these brackets.
Okay. Next question.
That figure will also differ by company as well.
Right. So next question here is, does the COVID impact score include or factor in longer payment terms that some companies are giving right now versus just a normal net payment terms?
Yes. So we measure days beyond terms. So the actual payment terms become irrelevant, whether it's 30, 60 or 90. What we're measuring is the days beyond that agreed payment date. So the higher that number is, where a company will become more impacted.
Right. So as long as, you can adjust to whatever level, we're just worried about how long beyond those terms that the companies are giving, yes. What are people actually paying?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. And I think we have exhausted the questions at this point, which is saying something. I say that, and then one more comes in. Is there any data to determine and or value PPP funding for companies who received what, how it affects them as far as the COVID impact or their score?
So I know there's talk at the relevant houses as to whether they're going to release this data and make it available. There is obviously freedom of information requests that can be made. Currently, Creditsafe does not have access to that data, but I know our team are looking into that data and what impact it's going to have.
Okay. So we don't have that specifically right now, just because
I believe today it's not currently available.
Right. Okay.
There are some.
But on the other side, and I'll make a plug for this on the other hand, if they're looking to support their PPP documents, if any company out there has gotten the PPP or is looking into getting it, this is been used by several companies out there, quite a few, that are going for that for their verification documents of being affected by the COVID pandemic. So it's something that we've seen different lending institutions and different individual businesses using as their verification documents, the score showing how their suppliers, their customers themselves are all affected. So there is some stuff involved with the PPP, but like Mark said, it's not public information yet for us to be able to get that information on who exactly got it and how much they got.
Public information. I just don't think it's publicly available yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. Okay, so it's not publicly available yet. Got it. Yeah, I think we've exhausted them. We've gone a couple minutes over, but thanks for sticking with us, folks. We are going to say goodbye at this point. Mark, thank you so much for being a part of this, taking time out of your busy schedule to explain this to us and show off what's going on here, and really give businesses an awesome opportunity to take advantage of this tool that we've created and everything. You can find Mark on LinkedIn. You can find him on our website. Like he said, on our website, creditsafe.com. All the information that he's talking about is there. You will get all the information in a follow-up email. So please be on the lookout for that within the next couple of days. And I do want to remind you that we do have another webinar coming up on Thursday, May 14th at 2 p.m. We will be talking about how to avoid collections. We've talked a bit about collections today. We'll be talking about how to avoid collections with the CEO of GB Collects, George Bressler. So he'll be on here with us, and our guest this Thursday at 2 p.m. You can register for that on our website, on LinkedIn. You can go through the events page and register. You do need a ticket. You do need to register, but it's free to you. And we look forward to seeing you there. Thanks again, folks. Have a great day. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Nathan.